start off with, the most important part of the Tolf Mk.II is to get the base plate to be level on the shooting table. We do that by means of the adjustable feet and obviously by means of the spirit level. So we're going to adjust the feet till we get this base plate 100% level, and then we will proceed to go to the strapping in of the base plate. It's important at this point in time to look at the system and how the hooks hook into each other and how it engages. It's important to hook it from the top. As you can see, we'll hook the first one, we'll hook the second one, and then we'll take these ratchet straps all the way around the table. You can also make use of other people helping you at this point. It will just speed things up. Round the back, underneath the base plate, and importantly through this pre-cut slot in the base plate. At this point in time, pull it through. The tables obviously differ in size. Make sure it's tight and get it through your ratchet itself. Once it's through, make sure you pull it tight before you start ratcheting. Leave it in this position. Proceed to put the second ratchet strap in the same fashion as the first one. Make sure it's nice and tight. Put it underneath the base plate, through the slot and into the ratchet. Tighten both these straps before you start ratcheting. Make sure they're both tightened, and at this point in time we need to ratchet and tighten both these straps simultaneously. So we'll proceed and do that. You will see the base plate might do make some movement. Don't be concerned. And we really get this thing down to the table now. It's imperative for this Tolf Mk.II recoil system, in order to get it work optimally, we need to get this thing tight so that it doesn't move around on the table. Take note that the base plate is still, at this point in time, still sitting 100% level on your shooting table. You can see that I'm applying quite a bit of force, and once again now you can feel that your Tolf Mk.II is properly strapped to your shooting table. Right folks, the next step is to place your rifle into the system. Important to place the rear in first. Make sure that the butt and the recoil pad is right up against the stopper plate. It's imperative. You don't want any play there. That's going to throw the whole system out. Make sure that you're pushing back on your rifle and also at the same time down on the butt, and then you can tighten the set screw at the back. At this point your rifle is now secured into the rear of the Tolf. Now we can go to the front. The rifle is laying in a steady position, and by means of the set screw beneath this front assembly, we will tighten the jaws onto the rifle stock. Make sure that this is tightened firmly, finger tight. We don't want to over tighten it, but when recoil takes place, we don't want the rifle to stand up. I've tightened it firmly now, and the rifle is now set in the system. A point I want to stress, folks, is that make sure that your rifle strap is not in the system jaws. We don't want any obstruction sitting beneath your rifle, so make sure your rifle is right down, your strap is out of the system, and the front assembly is firmly tightened onto the stock of the rifle. At this point now, folks, the rifle is part of the system, and from this point onwards, all the adjustment will take place on the Tolf itself, and I'll demonstrate that shortly. At this point in time, we want to go and sit down behind the rifle, get yourself in a comfortable position, and look through the telescope and decide at what distance you want to fire. Let's say, for instance, you want to fire at 100 meters. Get yourself the imaginary point at 100 meters. Here you can do some adjustment and just make an imaginary mark at your desired distance, and proceed to go out and place your target in the vicinity of that imaginary mark. We'll go out and proceed to take the target out. Once we've returned, you can make use of the adjustment to get spot onto your target. There is both lateral and vertical movement on your front adjusters. It's a very interesting concept. When you do adjustment here, by taking the one side down and the other side up, you won't only take the rifle barrel down, but you'll also move it to the right and vice versa. I recommend at this point in time, once you're looking through your telescope, play around with these front adjusters and get acquainted with it so that you understand how it works. It's very easy and it'll take you a minute or so, and then you'll understand how the system works. Also, for taller and shorter people, when you're looking through your telescope, you'll find I have pretty long arms, so I'll be in a position to get myself in a traditional shooting position and do adjustment on both sides simultaneously, which is recommended to get it right onto your target and to get it spot on. For shorter individuals, you'll be in a situation where you're sitting in a traditional shooting position, do your adjustment on the left hand side, and if desired, do your adjustment on the right adjuster by placing your hand underneath the rifle. At this point now, I'm going to get my rifle spot on, and from this point onwards, as I said, your adjustment all takes place at the front there. I'm happy, my rifle is sighted, it's zeroed onto my target, and now, importantly, you can fire the rifle in one of two manners. You can do it in the traditional manner, and I'll demonstrate that now. Sitting behind your, or peeping through your telescope and firing the round. What I recommend is the main objective of the Tolf Mk.II is to minimize human factor. Now, while sitting in a position like this, when your cheek is on the stock, there is a small degree of movement. So what I recommend is stay away from your rifle. Get yourself in behind the scope. Apply as little as possible pressure on the stock itself. Sit in that position, do your necessary adjustment, and when you are happy, sit back. The rifle is not going to go anywhere, and you can proceed by squeezing the trigger and firing the round. All the recoil will be taken by the system, and it will return to its position. Once again, we're trying to minimize the human factor here. This is the most important point in designing the Tolf Mk.II. All depending on caliber that you're shooting, you might be in a situation where you're firing a .223 or a .243, which is a relatively small caliber, and you'll find that your movement after firing the round would be minute. In lots of cases with firing smaller caliber rifles, I found that you don't need to do any adjustment. Firing 30-06, which this is a 30-06, you might get a little bit of movement. Therefore, your adjustment on this system is very, very sensitive. And after firing the round, get into a position again, make sure that you're still zeroed. Do the necessary adjustment and fire the next round. Folks, another point I just want to stress, it's important to understand the different parts of this Tolf Mk.II. I mentioned earlier on that your adjustment takes place once a rifle is in its shooting position. All the adjustment takes place on the front adjusters. Just to draw your attention to the fact that there is length adjustment on the Tolf Mk.II system. This will obviously take place when the rifle is out of this position, and it takes place with this set screw. Very important, at this point in time, this whole block at the back is right to the front. If you have a longer reach rifle, you can do your necessary length adjustment with this set screw and move the whole block back. You can play around with this. Very important that I want to stress is that the adjustment on these rods, there's one sole function of these adjusters here, and it just makes logical sense that once one moves this block back, this system in the front here will break out of a 90-degree angle, and you need to extend these rods to push your front adjusters back into as close as possible to a 90-degree situation in front. You don't want the system to lay back. That will minimize your movement on your front adjuster. So once again, just to recap, once length adjustment takes place here, you're going to move the block back by, let's say, an inch or so. It's important also to do the necessary adjustment on these threaded rods so that you push your whole system back into a 90-degree situation. And I can't stress that more, that we do all our adjustment in front in terms of sighting the rifle on the shooting range. At that point in time, you've already decided that your length adjustment is correct, and you don't want to play around with that. You could even do all these adjustments at home before you come through to the shooting range. No adjustment takes place on these threaded rods on the shooting range. It won't be necessary unless you change your rifle that you're going to fire, and the dimensions of the rifle differs to the one that you used before. Okay folks, I'm going to proceed now and fire a round. First of all, make sure you spot on target. I'm happy with that. I'm going to sit right back and just relax and squeeze the trigger. Notice that the system has taken the recoil. On a 3006 you get approximately 30 millimeters movement at the back here, just to give you an idea of the movement. I'm going to reload. First do the reloading. Make sure that the round is in the chamber. Once it's in that position, get back into your shooting position. Make sure, I need to do a slight adjustment there. I'm happy with that. Once again, minimal intervention with the rifle. I'm 100% happy. It looks good. Sit back. Fire the round. Don't